So today we'll be learning Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. So we start from the very end of Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis, where Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Omer Talmid Echad. So because this is referring back to the Mishnah, where in the Mishnah we had the machlokes of Bishama and Bishilel. What's the hechsher of a mavi? Is the hechsher of a mavi a lechi, either a lechi or a kaira, or that's the opinion of Bishilel, or for the hechsher of a mavi, you need to have both a lechi and a kaira. And there the Mishnah relates that a Talmid Echad, one particular student, related to Rabbi Akiva in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, and he said that this whole machlokes of where Shammai say that you need to have both the lechi and the mavi is only for mavi which is wider than arba amas. The entrance of the mavi and the length of the mavi, the width of the mavi is more than arba amas. If it's less than arba amas, even Shammai will agree that it's sufficient to have either a lechi or a mavi. That was the Talmid Echad said in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Akiva said that's incorrect. That both even if it's less than arba amas, you still the opinion of Shammai is that you need to have both a lechi and a mavi. In other words, the argument is even by a narrow mavi. And that's to the beginning of Daf Yud Gimel. Rabbi Akiva nechleku, even by a narrow mavi, Shammai argue Bishilel, and they say that you need to have both the lechi and the mavi. The structure of the Mishnah is that first the Mishnah brings the machlokes between the Shammai and Bishilel. Only afterwards we have this Talmid Echad saying in the name of Rabbi Shmuel that they don't that they only argue in a wider marvui and not in a narrow marvui. So therefore we can understand that before the Talmud, the Tanakam of the Mishnah, before the Talmid Echad in the name of Rabbi Shmuel holds that the machlokes of since that Tanakama did not explain that it's only speaking about a wider mavui, so then it's self-understood that that according to Tanakama, the argument of Bisham and Bishil are in all types of mavui, whether it's a narrow mavui, less than 6 foot of our amas, or even a wide mavui. And then we have Rabbi Akiva, who also argues on this Talmud Echad B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel, and also says that even a narrow mavui, Shammai say you need to have both the lecha and the kaira. So therefore, the question of the Gemara is, Rabbi Akiva Haina Tanakama, that Rabbi Akiva is saying the same things that Tanakama. So how do we have to? So he's just saying the same thing as Tanakama. So yeah. So the Gemara answers, Ikebenayu Rav Ach. Yeah, there is a difference in Tanakama and the Rabbi Akiva, because there are, even though both Rabbi Akiva and Tanakama say that a narrow mavui, which is narrower than arba amas, but Shammai still say you need to have both a lechi and the kaira. But there is an even narrower mavui where there, according to one of them, you will not need to have you'll not need to have a lechi and a kaira, because less than arba. The lesson, if it's a narrow mavui, so then you won't need the lechi and the kaira, and that is the difference between the Akiva and the Tanakama. According to one of them, even a very narrow mavui needs to have a lechi and the kaira, or just one of them according to Bishil, and according to the other one, a very narrow mavui does not need to have anything. So the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Tanakama is concerning a very narrow mavui, whether it needs to have a lechi and a kaira, or you don't even need to bother with a lechi and a kaira. What is a very narrow mavui? So Rabbi Achli says that if the mavui is 4 tfachim or narrower, if it's 4 tfachim or narrower, so then they do not. if it's 4 tefachim or narrower, then you don't need have a lechi at the Korah at all. There's no need for either of them. That's what Rabbi Achli says. So one of the Tanoim agrees with Rabbi Achli that a very narrow mavoi of 4 tefachim or less doesn't need to have a lechi at the Korah at all. And the one of them argues and says that even a very narrow mavoi will need to have depending on the machlekes of Shabbos Hill. I think I should stress over here that if the mavoi is narrower than 3 tefachim, then everybody agrees you don't need lechi and korah, because once it gets to less than 3 tefachim, so we apply the klal of love. So this machlekes would be between 4 and 3 tefachim. That would be the machlekes between the Kanakama and Rebbe Kiva. Says the Gemara, the loy Messiah, and we do not know who holds what. Who is the one who says that a very narrow? We know that Rebbe Kiva and the Tanakama argue about the very narrow movi whether it needs lechi and korah, but we don't know which one says it does need the lechi, and which is the one that says you don't have to bother with the lechi. Okay, Tanya will let the Rebbe Kiva Omar. Tanya will let the Rebbe Kiva said, Loi Omar Rabbi Shmuel Dovazeh. Rabbi Shmuel never said that. It couldn't have been Rabbi Shmuel to say that. So Rabbi Kiva, when he heard that from the Talmud Echad, he said, nah, Rabbi Shmuel could never have said that. Hello, Talmud Omar Dovazeh. But this is you said it. This is your own statement. It's not from the Rabbi Shmuel. And then he continued, Halacha ka'isa Talmud. And the halacha is like that Talmud. So this is a brisa. It seems to be a bit different than what we learned in the Mishnah, because in this brisa it seems that Rabbi Akiva paskened like that Talmud. But so the Gemara says Hogu for Kash. There's a contradiction in the brisa itself. It seems a contradiction. First of all, Amrat, he said, Loi Omer Rabbi Shmuel Dovazeh. You say for sure Rabbi Shmuel did not say such a never said this halacha. Alma less hilchas hakavasei. So that means you're so sure Rabbi Shmuel didn't say that. Why? Such a thing, such a wrong svara. Rabbi Shmuel could not say that. Alma less hilchas hakavasei. So you see the halacha is not like not like Rabbi Shmuel. V'hoder Amrat. Then you say halacha ka'isa Talmud. Then later, and then later, Rabbi Kiva says the halacha is like that Talmud. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel, lei Omer Rabbi Kiva, elachadid ba hatalmidim. So he says that Rabbi Kiva only said that he didn't mean to say Rabbi Kiva when he said the halacha is like that Talmud. He didn't really mean it that halacha is like that Talmud. He just said, this Talmud is, the halacha is saying very good. So in other words, when he heard Rabbi Shmuel, he said, no. Rabbi Shmuel could not say that because he knew that Rabbi Shmuel would not say such a thing because it was wrong. But nevertheless, he said that the halacha is like that Talmud. When he said halacha is not Talmud, it's not because he actually agreed with it. He was saying that he's saying that the Talmud is saying very good because he wanted to teach the Talmidim that you should be able to come to your own conclusions, and that your own conclusions to train them and to encourage them to come to their own conclusions. He said halacha is a Talmud, but so I suppose he didn't mean that you should actually pasken halacha. I mean, there is a lot of value in what he's saying. That's probably what he meant. That's my understanding. That he said that there's a lot of value in what he's saying, and halacha. It's a good halachic svara, like it's a good halachic opinion. But he didn't mean to say that you could actually pass. But Nachman Bar Yitzchak Nirin. Nachman Bar Yitzchak said he didn't use the word halacha. He said nirin. So nirin, it's good. So it's so is saying, yeah, it's a very good svar, it's a very good opinion. But so that it's a bit easier if you say nirin than if you say halacha. Halacha means that you should follow, because Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Kiva argued. He says that he was so sure that it's wrong, and that he was even sure that Rabbi Shmuel never said it. But still, he wanted to encourage the Talmidim to come up with their own view of how they see things. So we remain that Rabbi Kiva does not agree with it says that Basil Bashami argue in all cases, even in a narrow norm. Itmer will let the memory. Omer B'Shubal Levi. Kol Makom Shaka Meitzim Shum Rabbi Shmuel. Omer Talmid Echad Lifnei Rabbi Kiva. Whenever you see that somebody is repeating to Rabbi Kiva, a Talmud that is repeating to Rabbi Kiva in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, whenever you find any brises which tell the story, or Mishnahs which tell this story, who is that Talmud? Eine El Rabbi Meir. That's Rabbi Meir. Shemesh is Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva. Because Rabbi Meir, he was a student by both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. So therefore, he would repeat over to Rabbi Kiva what he had learned from Rabbi Shmuel. So the Talmud Echad now Mishnah is obviously Rabbi Meir. The Tanya went in the Brisa, Omer Rabbi Meir, Kshayise it's Rabbi Shmuel. Now we're going to learn the Brisa where you see that Rabbi Meir was both by Rabbi Shmuel and he was by Rabbi Kiva, student of both. The Tanya Omer Rabbi Meir, Kshayise it's Rabbi Shmuel. When I was Rabbi Shmuel, he said, I would put in kankantum into the ink. That's something which makes the ink it more adhesive or sticks better to the parchment. So I put in kankantum into the dioy. I didn't look up the English what exactly kankantum is, but according to Rashi, it seems to be some black stuff, and according to Tosfos, it's a greenish stuff. But the greenish stuff is when you put it, mix it in with the ink, it actually helps for the ink to become black. I think it's used nowadays, this green stuff, put it in it's a green glossy type of earth or something. And anyway, so this can come to, he would put it into the joy. And Rabbi Shmuel didn't say anything about it. He was fine with it, Rabbi Shmuel. I put the kankantum into the joy. Rabbi Kiva, came to Rabbi Kiva, he said, no, you cannot put the kankantum into the joy. So just remember what's kankantum. It actually it makes the ink sticks stronger onto the parchment. Okay, so according to this version, what happened? It was first by Rabbi Shmuel, and would use kankantum, and Rabbi Kiva stopped him from using kankantum. So Gemara says, it's not like it's not true. That this is the name Rabbi Meir, a different version. Rabbi Kiva. Now we'll be learning about Rabbi Kiva. So I used to matal kankantum. So I used to put kankantum into the ink, and then he wouldn't say anything. We're talking about the writing secretaries, etc. When he came to Rabbi Shmuel, he said to me, what's your job? We have Panasov. I'm a lavler. I'm a lavler. I'm a cipher. Cipher. Got to be very careful the way you do things. You have to be very careful. Yeah, this is a melacha for the Eibishter, the secretaries, mezuzahs, etc. And you got to be careful. Shema ato sometimes you can maybe skip out a letter or write an extra letter. Nimtzos machriv, or nimtzeso machriv as kolo elam kulei, and you're like destroying the whole world. In other words, because if you write something extra, it's not just a mistake. We talk about mistake in the Sefer Torah. Okay, so you won't know the specific halacha. There's sometimes if you make in the Sefer Torah, you make a mistake, you machriv as kolo elam kulei, destroy the whole world. It means that if you say something which is against Hashem, you say something against Hashem, so the whole world you destroy. Because if there's no Hashem, there's no world. So, for instance, so Rashi brings the example of Mechaser Is Achas. for instance, Hashem lekechem emes. So if he doesn't write the word emes, he writes he writes the word if it misses the aleph, if it misses the aleph, so then it's Hashem lekechem. It's mem sof. You know, there's no Eibishter. Or if he adds a letter instead of Vayidaber, he writes Vayidabru. There's two deities. So the kids are advarim. So therefore, you got to. It's a very. You got to be very careful the way you do things, because you can make something which is, like you said, the expression Machar v'Sa'olam Kula. Anyway, so then the price continues, and it says a martiloi. So the response of Rabbi Meir, we need to understand what the response was. The Gemara will deal with it. A martiloi, so Rabbi Meir said to him, "Dover echad yeshli, I have something. This is either some earth or the powder earth. It's called kankantum. Shani matil I put it into the ink. You heard that? Are you allowed to put are you allowed to put kankantum into the ink? In other words, you're not allowed to. Why? Well, the Torah says the kosav umocha. It's talking about the by the site. It says you should write this divrei ha'olah azos by the site. You write down the things, and then it says umocha. Then you rub it out. The kohen has to rub it out, and then gives it to drink to the site. Now, so Rabbi Shmuel, he'll learn the kosav umocha that is teaches us not just benegay to site. It teaches us the kol Torah kula. That when the kosav, the union of kosav ksiva has to be something that you're able to rub out. When is the gather of ksiva, of writing, what the Torah tells you to write, is such a type of writing that you're able to rub out. So therefore, when it says all these anything to write the Sefer Torah, so the gather writing is that you're able to rub out. So ksav sheyochel limchitz, and so therefore you put the kankantum, so it doesn't really rub out well. And even if you rub it out, there's still some coloring left on the parchment. Therefore, it's not kosher because you can't rub it out well. Anyway, that was the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel as is brought over here in this verse. Right. So the Gemara says, first of all, how did the conversation go? He tells him, you've got to be careful what you're writing, you shouldn't make mistakes. He tells him, I'm putting kankantum in this. It doesn't help him for the mistakes. So he's like, he's deviating onto a different subject. So the Gemara says, Hochi Kamal, this is what he said. Loimi Boile says, first of all, he answered him, for sure. You have to write correctly. Loimi Boile is for sure, the Chseres Viseres, that extra letters or missing letters, don't make a mistake. The Boki, I know because I'm Boki. I know it all, and I don't make a mistake. Not only that, Elo Afilu Mechesh Lizvuv, I have an extra hidur. Not only I won't make a mistake, I have an extra hidur. The Mechesh Lizvuv Nami. That I'm worried about that for the fly, Dilma Osiv Yosef Ataged the Dalit. Maybe I want to write it with a strong ink. Why? Because maybe a fly will sit on the dalit, on the edge of the dalit, and the fly trying to eat some of it or whatever the fly does, whatever. So therefore, it will cause a mochikle, and the fly will rub out a little bit of the dalit, and then it will look like a reish. So therefore, since I'm nizar even in that this shouldn't happen. It should, when people using Sefer Torah, it shouldn't become rubbed out a little bit, and therefore is yesh dover echad yesh. They have something. It's a type of material. The kakantum shvoy. The name is kakantum shani matal techadyoy. That I put into the ink. Okay, so we sort of sorted out how the conversation went. He told him, yes, I'm very careful, and I'm boking to not make mistakes, and I even have certain hidurim. Okay. Then so the Gemara says, kasha shimush, kasha osra. First of all, we have so who was he mashamash first? First, in one brayse it says first he was Rabbi Shmuel, later came to Rabbi Kiva, and then the other version of the story, he first was Rabbi Kiva, and then later he came to Rabbi Shmuel. So which way was it? Was it first by Rabbi Shmuel, or was it first by Rabbi Shmuel, or was it first by Rabbi Kiva? Did he come from Rabbi Shmuel to Rabbi Kiva, or did he come from Rabbi Kiva to Rabbi Shmuel. Which way was it? And the other kasha is, who said it's also to use the kankantum? Is it Rabbi Shmuel or is Rabbi Kiva says it's also to use the kankantum? Okay. So the Gemara says, Shimush HaShimush L'Kasha. The question which we had on Shimush, question is, did he come from Rabbi Shmuel and then go to Rabbi Kiva, or did he come from Rabbi Kiva and then go to Rabbi Shmuel? So both happened. One second. The kasha. Mikora also comes to Rabbi Kiva. The Chatchila came to Rabbi Kiva. He came to Midla also Lamekin Alibay also Lekam Rabbi Shmuel. Since he wasn't able to get it into his heart, he wasn't able to fully understand Rabbi Kiva. Because so also Lekam Rabbi Shmuel. He came to Rabbi Shmuel, the Gomar Gemara, and he learned the halachas. Now, Rabbi Kiva, he used to have he was a big mefalfel. Rabbi Kiva was a big mefalfel, would ask questions and tirutzim, etc. Maybe it's connected a bit that Rabbi Kiva was on each tag he was deirish tilim shel halachas. The kitzur Rabbi Kiva, he was a big mefalfel with questions and answers, etc. So therefore, it was too much. Rabbi wasn't able to understand it. So therefore, he went. So he left Rabbi Kiva, and then he went to Rabbi Shmuel, and then he learned all the mishnahs. He learned all the mishnahs, all the straight halachas. And then after he finished Rabbi Shmuel, then the Hadar also came to Rabbi Kiva. Then he was Sava Svara. Then he came to Rabbi Kiva and to learn all the svaras and questions and answers and ideas, etc. Okay, so that's what we sorted out. Yes, that he came from Rabbi. First, he started with the Rabbi Kiva, went to Rabbi Shmuel, then he came back later to Rabbi Kiva again. But the problem is also. Who's the one who says also? Is it Rabbi Kiva or is it Rabbi Shmuel? No, also kasha. That still remains a question. No, the Gemara says kasha. The kasha is a lotion of the kasha which remains. We have to yufta is like his ogish log. If you have a tiyufta, the halach is not going to be like that. We've asked the question, we have refuted the thing. Kasha is okay. We have a question, but it's something which we can live with. Okay. Tanya, we learned the Bryce, we see Lepoil, we see before that Remeir did put kankam. But he came to somebody and that whoever it was told him not to put kankam. Yeah, but it probably does not mean that doesn't necessarily mean that Remeir accepted it. Remeir did put kankam. He came to somebody and whoever it was, according to the two versions, and told him not to. But apparently he still continued putting kankam. Okay. So Tanya Remeir said, when you write the Sefer Torah, you can put kankantum into the ink. You can put kankantum into the ink, and therefore, the letters will be stronger. It's attached to the parchment. When it comes to the Pasha's Saita, that Pasha you shouldn't put kankantum. Why shouldn't you put kankantum? Because maybe they'll need to use it. Maybe they'll need to use it for Saita. So therefore, since maybe they'll need to use it for Saita, so they won't be able to rub it out. Right. Rabbi Yankiv in Mishmei, Rabbi Yankiv said the name of Remeir. So there's two opinions called Remeir. He said, Chutz in Pasha Saita of Mikdash. Except for the Saita of Mikdash. In the whole Sefer Torah, you can write what's it called? We can count it. Even the Pasha Saita you can write in Kankantum. Even the Pasha Saita, because we're not going to rub it. We're not going to rub it out. Only the Pasha Saita in the Beis Hamikdash, when they wrote the Pasha Saita, then they didn't use Kankantum because they had to rub it out. So when they write just that Pasha, then they would rub it out. So therefore, we didn't use Kankantum. My bin Nayu, what is the argument between them that even in the Sefer Torah you shouldn't write? You shouldn't write Pasha Saita. So that the argument between them is: are you permitted to rub it out from the Torah? Are you permitted to rub it out from the Torah to use for a Saita? So, if it's according to the Rabbi Yehuda, you're allowed to. If a Saita comes along and you have a Sefer Torah, you can take the Sefer Torah and rub out from the Sefer Torah for the what's it called. You don't have to write a new parsha. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we have a Sefer Torah. They can use that in the Beis Hamikdash. They don't need to write a specific new parsha for this lady. And therefore, all Sefer Torah you have to make sure it's kosher, and therefore it should be available if necessary. If it comes out and it's used, it should be able to be kosher to be rubbed out to be used for a site. Whereas Rabbi Yankov says you cannot use a Sefer Torah. You cannot use a Sefer Torah. You have to write it specifically for the site. It has to be written. It has to be written specifically for the site. And so therefore, you will never use a Sefer Torah to rub it out. So therefore, the Sefer Torah you can write kankanto for everything. And only the one which you use for the site, the best is the special written that you're not going to use kankanto. And we see in the Gemara that that this has to do with the dinim of the Shema. The reason why you can't rub it out of the Sefer Torah is not because you're not allowed to rub out the Sefer Torah. That doesn't seem to be the reason over here in the Gemara. The reason which the Gemara is because it is the Sefer Torah good enough lishma to be is the Sefer Torah good enough lishma to be used for a Seder, or does it have to be specially made lishma? That's not because of the Kedusha Sefer Torah. It doesn't seem to it's not part of the dion over here. It's just whether it's good enough because it wasn't written lishma. Okay, it says this these tanoim, whether you can use a parsha from the Sefer Torah, from a regular Sefer Torah, can use a parsha and use that in the Beis Hamikdash, the Seder comes out. So that machlekes is like the machlekes of another machlekes tanoim. Okay, what's the other machlekes tanoim? The Tanya ein migilosik sheil hashkel Seder acheres. There is Taka Braisa which says that if you wrote the Megillah for one Saita, so if you wrote Megillah for one Saita and then she was murdered that she didn't avera, so therefore you can't rub it out. You're not going to rub out the name of Hashem for nothing, so you can't rub it out. And so you have this Megillah which was written specifically for the Saita. So maybe you want to use it for the next Saita that comes along. So he says no. So the Tanna Kama says you cannot use the Megillah because it was the Shem for a different Isha. So since it's Shem for a different Isha, you can't use it for the second site. Yeah, he says you can use it for another site, even though it was written for this site. You can use it. But now you don't need it. It's spare. You can use it for another site. So what's the machlekes? The machlekes is whether you need to be lishma, the din of lishma, does it apply to Megillah Seder, or do we care about lishma? Do we not care about the Tana Kama says we need to have the spiritual lishma, therefore you reuse it for a second Seder. According to Rabbi, he says that we don't care, but yeah, Rabbi says we don't care about it. He doesn't care about lishma. You don't need a lishma by Megillah Seder, since you don't need lishma by the Seder, so therefore it didn't go for one. You can use it for the second. And therefore, according to him, you can write the Sefer Torah as well. According to Tanakama, you can't use the Sefer Torah because it's not lishma. According to Rabbi Bayashi, you can use the Sefer Torah because you don't need lishma. Rav Papa said, so the Gemara is now going to differentiate and say you can't bring a raya from this lishma to whether you're permitted to use the Sefer Torah. Because the scenario from a leftover Megillah, which was written for somebody else, is not the same as a Sefer Torah, and you can't learn out the dinim from the Megillah Seder, which is written for another lady. You can't learn out from that Megillah to a Sefer Torah. You can't compare it. So it says, Amar Papa the reason why the Tanna Kama says it's possible because it's not lishma, because it was written for another lady. It was written for the Rachel. So then, if it's written for Rachel, then you can't be Avo Gabetera, the stam, but stam is kosher. If it was written for Lishem, a different Isha, you can't then convert this to this Isha. But if it was written stam with nobody particular in mind, anybody should be able to use it. So if it wasn't written with particular in mind that anybody should be able to use it, then that's good enough. It's enough of the lishma. The stam miktave is a hachinam de mechakina. So then we can use it because that would be considered a lishma. If it's written stam, it's also considered lishma because it's available whoever wants it. And so that is the Tanakama is not a raya. It's not a raya from the Tanakama that the Torah is possible. And then Rav Nachman Yitzchak is going to say that it's not a raya from Rabbi Acha Bayasha. The Sefer Torah is kosher to use. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Dil Melei Ad Kan Lekam Rabbi Acha Bayasha. When did Rabbi Acha Bayasha say that that it's kosher to use for another Sefer, even for another Isha, even though it wasn't written Lishma, even though it was not written Lishma, Rabbi Acha Bayasha said it's kosher anyway. When it was written L'Shem Saita, the Ichtel Mir is L'Shem Saita Ba'elam. It was written L'Shem Saita. It was written for a Saita, to be written to be used for this Inyan, for the curse. It was written to be used for the curse. The Islamic Siva. So the Torah is this has at least it doesn't have the shema for the particular isha, but it has l'shem using for the curse of a Saita. But Torah it doesn't even have that lishma because it's the Islamic Siva. It's written. The reason why you write this Torah is to learn from it. So the Siva is written to learn from it. So therefore. It's missing lishma. It's not l'shem. It's not l'shem aklala. It's hachanam leimachakina that you're not allowed. Okay. So the kitzur. So therefore, what we've over here, the two machlokesen are separate machlokesen, and you cannot and the opinions they're not. It's not. They don't. Both these tanoim. The two groups of tanoim don't argue about the same principle. There's different principles involved. The Gemara is going to just do another few lines. So the Gemara asked the question, Akol Ponim. So Rav Acha Bayasha, he said that Rav Acha Bayasha said that it doesn't have to be lishma. That's what it comes out. Rav Acha Bayasha said that we're not. It doesn't have to be lishma l'shem isha because if you write for one lady, it can still kosher for another lady. So it says the Gemara asks, unless Rav Acha Bayasha doesn't hold up. Now we learned in the Mishnah when they gave it to get cost of get legarish. The Nimlach v'Nimtza ben Iroi. He wrote to get for his wife. Then he decided to not get divorced. Then, but he found somebody else with the same name, Nimtza ben Iroi. Found somebody from the same city because you write the name of the city in the get as well. But I'm going to say, Shimcha Kishmi, your name is my name is Shemishtra. And the wives are the same name. Take it. Give me the 20 pounds and here use my get to divorce your wife. Possible the guy. You're not allowed to. Yeah. So you see that you cannot use somebody's get for another person. So how can you use how can is he going to argue this mission and say you write the Saita, the letter, the Megillah Saita, you write for one lady, you're allowed to use the Salada, it's the Mamish Leil Shman. So the Gemara says, no. Hachi Hasha, don't compare the two things. Get and Megillah Saita is not the same. Also, by get, the cost of law, it says the cost of law. Law means specifically for that woman. The writing has to be done Lishma. It doesn't say the cost of law. It says also law be in asiya lishma. It says also law. The asiya, the rubbing out has to be lishma. Asiya the day mechike. The asiya over here is a mechike. That's the asiya. It doesn't mean the writing when it says also law. It means the rubbing out. And so therefore you don't need that lishma. You don't need the lishma of for the particular issue. It's a din in get, not a din benegating Megillas, what's it called? Megillas Seder. But I think Tosis brings, I call Panib, it says the Kosovas are always. Since the Kosovas are always, so therefore it has to be written L'Shem Megillas Seder, even though no particular issue in mind.